everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. This is where I take 10 questions from our subscribers and answer them to the best of my ability. For those of you that don't know about 10 for the Chairman and our subscribers, well, they're the portion of our community that contributes extra money every month to allow us to do additional community content, which this show would be part of. The Jump Point magazine is part of, which provides a whole bunch of content that trickles down to all the users, plus our additional shows like Now Around the Verse and some upcoming stuff we've got planned. So thank you very much to subscribers out there for allowing us the additional funds to do this kind of thing. And I'd like to say, by the way, thank you to Disco Lando. This is a Chris Robertson RSI bobblehead. So very cool. But Disco Lando was by a week or so ago and did our very first episode of Around the Verse, and he dropped this off, so thank you very much. Has a nice pride of place on my desk. Okay, so to the first questions. The first one comes from Wolfcrest, who asks, with the next great starship over, will we get an announcement about when and for how much the final ship will cost? With regards to its implementation, does CIG take over from the end of the competition to add physics and damage states of the vessel, or is that left to the team? Next great starship, season 2, question mark. Yes, there's a bunch of work that has to be done to get the ship into shape to even put it into the hangar. So the ships were brought into engine and they were nice, but there's a whole bunch of like cleanup in terms of the hierarchy. Needs to be a certain amount of physics proxies both inside and outside. It needs to be broken up in a certain way so parts can animate and open and all work inside the vehicle system we use. So there's a bunch of work. We're actually going to be working with the finalists to pay them actually to do some of the finishing work, and then we will take it in-house and finish it off here. So when that's done, we're kind of hoping to bring it out with the Mustang, which was the other ship that we sort of premiered on the Next Great Starship, and let you guys add it to your collection if you would like. As far as prices go, we haven't set it, but it probably should equate to something that would be equivalent to its weaponry. So we're obviously not going to be selling a gunship with big turrets and everything for the price of an Aurora, but we haven't finalized it. But it will be commensurate with the sort of, I guess, costs of the other ships. But it's a cool ship. And also at that time, I think we're going to see if you guys are interested in having some of the other ships in the game, because they were all pretty awesome actually. So the top 4 at least were pretty brilliant. So I could be quite happy seeing them in the game. So then, Next Great Starship Season 2. Well, I think we definitely would. I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really great approach. We may make a few format changes, but I think it's a great way to sort of expose the talent out there and get some different eyes and content inside the game. So I think we will try to make this a sort of annual event. All right, next question comes from Uchu, who asks, it's been mentioned that planets will have a day-night cycle, but will planets have a seasonal cycle as well? E.g., perhaps on planets that have a winter season, all the street markets close up during the season and certain goods stop being produced or are only acquirable in reduced quantities. Well, I think that would be a good question for Tony, who is sort of heading up the Persistent Universe side of things inside the project. Planets definitely will have a day-night cycle. We are looking at the possibility of actually giving planets an orbitary cycle, which would really sort of be a seasonal cycle. I don't know about the impact of the seasonal cycle so much on sort of markets or closing up early or late. It's a really cool idea, but I think that would not be a sort of V1.0 idea, but certainly will be sort of a kind of a detail and a nuance that we could add later, which would probably even increase the immersion. So good idea. I mean, the system handles the day-night stuff, and we're looking at, like I said, handling the sort of the orbital stuff. So you certainly will have the data to derive that, and then the question would just be like, how does that interface with the economy? So that could be on a cool thing to add in the future list. Next question comes from Beer for the Beer God. Beer for the Beer God asks, how do you envision 2 organizations going to war? How would they fight? What would they fight over? Can we make burning Mark Skelton's golden shirt of artistic power a stretch goal? Well, I definitely like making burning the shirt a stretch goal. That's pretty cool. I say if we get to $50 million, we burn the gold shirt. But in terms of the two organizations going to war and how would they fight, I would think that an organization would declare that it would be hostile to the other organization, and then essentially members of the organization, if they came across each other, would try and attack each other. Usually wars tend to happen over pieces of real estate, and so we are trying to add sort of persistent aspects to the game, like we've mentioned sort of an asteroid base you can fight over, or a space station you can fight over. And I would think that probably some of the organizational conflict will be directly related to sort of persistent pieces of real estate in the universe, where someone's trying to fight for control of a valuable mining operation, or someone's trying to fight for control of a jump point or something like that. So that's kind of where I think the conflict would be evolved around. Obviously, we have some stuff that we have to deal in terms of the instancing, because we can't have 2,000 people all in the same area at the same time. But I think we've got some pretty good answers for that. So that's kind of how I would see organizations going to war. Okay, next question comes from F. John, who asks, I'm loving the dogfight module this far and can't wait for more stuff. Is there a way, or a plan to develop a way, to be an observer in a multiplayer match? Specifically, will I be able to observe a dogfight, preferably a head-to-head dogfight, and be able to trail one player? Yes, we are actually on our list of things to do is spectator mode, to allow people to come into spectator mode, and we were thinking that it would be a really good way where maybe there's a couple of open clans where someone could just come in as a spectator, and we may even have sort of an auto spectator mode that we power up that could like stream to Twitch and stuff like that, because definitely it's kind of fun. I mean, we all around here right now are watching people play the game via Twitch, and it's pretty informative, and it's strangely engrossing. But sort of auto spectator mode will do things like allow you to switch to follow different players and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. Although, before anyone starts concerned forum threads, we will make sure that if that feature is enabled, it won't be in such a way that it could give away information in a competitive match that you wouldn't want to give away. All right. Next question comes from Arglamauf, Arglamauf, who asks, as Star Citizen is to be a great sim, can you clarify what a sim is by your definition? Would Freelancer, for example, fulfill your definition of a sim? Many are currently concerned by the arcadiness of Arena Commander. Maybe a word from you whether it musters up to what you want it to be would help address these concerns. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, for me, it's sort of, when I think about space sim, I think sort of Wing Commander, Privateer, Freelancer all sort of qualify as space sims. They just have different approaches, and, to be honest with you, I would say Wing Commander was pretty damn arcadey. In fact, it's a lot more arcadey than Arena Commander is, because there was a lot more sort of shortcuts taken in terms of the simulation, and it was set up in such a way that you could just blast a whole bunch of Karathi because they were gimped, so you would feel like the hero, downing wave after wave of the enemy. And, I know people go back and forth, but, I play all the games, including all the other ones that are out here right now that I can play in alpha. And I'm pretty happy where we are. I think we're the most accurate on a simulation side by anyone, by a long stretch of motion. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm pretty confident we are. And then it's really just a matter of the control, input, and how that's translated into sort of the computer that's controlling the flight. And we're trying to make the game inclusive for a large amount of people. So the goal with the game is to make it pretty easy to pick up and play. And then as you get deeper into it, there's a lot of dials and knobs you can turn to make the dogfighting more interesting or give you an edge over another player that isn't as experienced. So I always liken it to being very much like StarCraft or StarCraft 2, where you can just go around and with a mouse and point and click and build units and fight people. But until you really sort of know, the sort of rock, paper, scissors of all the units, and you know every keyboard shortcut, it's pretty hard for you to compete with someone that's more experienced. And I definitely think that's going to be the case in Star Citizen. I've already noticed in a lot of the forum threads, and I talked about this last week in the post that we talking about the flight model and everything, is that there's a lot of people at the beginning who weren't used to what we're trying to do, because all past flight sims, pretty much, including a lot of the present ones, go with a very sort of simplified atmospheric model and then sort of add some kind of space trappings like okay, I can go up or down or left or right. But they don't really simulate it to the level that we do, where we actually add, every item has its own mass and gets added to the ship and changes the moment of inertia, and the thrusters gimbal to fire at the specified directions and actually apply thrust, which changes the inertia, angular or linear, of that ship. So we're not doing any cheating, just saying, oh, okay, all of a sudden we rotate by 15 degrees or 20 degrees. It all comes out of the simulation, and that gives you a much higher level of fidelity and also a difference in feel with ships, even ships that would maybe weigh the same and have the same class of engines. If one is more compact than another, then at that point it will actually feel different. It will rotate at different speeds because it has a different sort of angular momentum and a moment of inertia. So I definitely don't feel that we're arcadey. I do think that in every sort of space game or space sim, you have to make some level of you got to make a call about what's fun and what isn't fun, right? So generally, space combat, in my mind, would not be anything like the way it is in Arena Commander or any other space game you play, because it would probably all be done by computers well beyond visual range, and it would be about whose computer processes fast enough to create a firing solution. But we don't like that. We like to get on the tail and sort of shoot people down and see the ships. And I definitely feel that Arena Commander does a good job of that. Is there things that can get improved? Absolutely, and that's what we're working on. We're going to make it, better with everyone's help and feedback out there. But I think as far as the sim goes, we're probably more sim than pretty much everything out there. I mean, besides just the physics of it all and the flight model, like the ship itself, all the systems in it are individual systems that plug into that ship, and they all interconnect through power pipes and heat pipes and the CPU pipe and or fuel pipe, which takes the fuel from the fuel tank to the thrusters and all the rest of stuff. And they all interconnect, and if one fails, it can affect the other one. Say if your power plant goes down or gets damaged and it reduces its power output, then everything that draws power from it may not operate, or may operate at less functionality. So it's all very system based, right? So a lot of things should just fall out of it. Like a part of your ship gets ripped out with several systems on it, they're gone. So all of a sudden, if other parts of the ship required that system, whether it was a power plant or a heat sink or something like that, they wouldn't function. But we don't have any code to say if wing is blown off, then do this. It all just falls out of the system. And so I would say we're probably pretty simish. And then the aspect is it your definition of what you think is a sim? And I think it's going to be so many people in this game. There's so many different takes on it. It's almost impossible to please everybody. But I think in the long run, if people stick with it, because don't forget, this isn't just about dogfighting, which is Arena Commander. And even right now, the multiplayer dogfighting, I mean, there are only the team mode. Should be open to most people by now, but up until now, the team mode hasn't really been open to people, so you just watch people go in and it's a third ball. So of course, two people are fighting and not looking at you, of course you can come in and start shooting at them and they're not going to be able to see you. And so it's not really a good indicator of what the combat's really going to be like long term in the universe, because the Arena Commander combat's much more sort of ultimately set to be more fast-paced than I think the final combat will be in the universe when you're out there for real, because that has a lot more to do with your radar and your signatures and a whole bunch of other stuff that you would manage, and you would have a ways to go before you got into contact with someone that you were fighting. And so there's a bunch more that happens. So Arena Commander is really sort of the first pass to get out to the straight up there rough and tumble fighting, work on the control inputs and the flight models and a bunch of the little stuff that we need to balance. But the ultimate game is going to have so much more, and we've built so much of systems in to allow it to do that. I think the potential is immense, and I think people are going to have a lot of fun in it, you know, beyond just dogfighting, you know, just smuggling or trading or all the rest of the stuff. So, all right, there you are. I don't know if that answered the question about being a sim, but anyway, there you go. Next question comes from Dusk Breeze, who asks, in the latest Terra Gazette, a smuggler dumped a live cargo container which had been damaged and leaking O2. Will damage to cargo containers be modeled in-game, and possible loss of cargo if it requires an atmosphere? Well, all the cargo containers will be items in the game, and so you can damage any item. And then I would guess, you know, if you had a container and, you know, the damage that it did would leak O2, you could probably sped up specific stuff to like have a particle effect where it looked like gas was expecting. So we do the damage. I don't know if you want, we're not at the point now where if it had an atmosphere in the cargo container and there was a stowaway inside it and then you damage it and the atmosphere linked out, the person would die inside. We're not there yet, although that wouldn't necessarily be that hard to do, but we definitely do have damage modeled on all items, and so it's really just a matter of doing the art and the effects once it gets damaged. So there you go. Odysseus asks, the two maps that were released with Arena Commander are beautiful and full of detail. I'm wondering, are these maps representative of what the PU will look and feel like, with all the rocks and debris, or will there also be large spans of open space and that we need to cross to get from point A to point B? It seems like the best way to show how big the universe is would be to have a lot of nothing. Yes, in the persistent universe, the Arena Commander maps are a sort of smaller scale map. So there was one big technical move we haven't done yet in the engine, which we're in the process of getting ready to do and be doing some early work on, which is moving from single precision floating point to double precision floating point. And single precision floating point, you know, once you get beyond about 8 to 10 kilometers from the origin, you start to have some precision problems in small distances, like under a meter. In double precision, you don't, because it's obviously a much larger range. And our goal is to have a system map be one unified map, so it's not split up. So, you know, the address space in the system is the same from one side to the other side, and that will come with the double precision. In that case, what's going to happen is you're going to have large areas of not really a lot, and then you'll have clumps of detail, like the asteroid field or the stuff that you see in Broken Moon or Dying Star. So it'll be a combination of nothing and then sort of high levels of detail with some beautiful backgrounds. There you go. And it'll be much bigger. I mean, we're talking about, you know, we won't go fully accurate because that's getting really big and would be boring, but, you know, we're probably looking at our system sizes to be plus or minus 1 million kilometers versus plus or minus 8 to 10 kilometers. Okay, next question comes from EdTech, who asks, you have stated there will not be a monthly cost to play once the PU is live, persistent universe for all those that don't know what PU is, but will we still be able to subscribe as we do now? Will there still be a separate store for subscribers and Jump Point magazine, etc., or will subscriptions be turned off and we lose those perks? No, you know what? I think we probably would maintain the subscription stuff, mainly because that's really about community content and it doesn't really affect gameplay, and it's a great way to sort of allow, you know, have us be able to sort of give a lot more content back to the community. So for now, I mean, unless we were doing so amazingly well on the persistent universe that we just didn't need the extra money, I would think that we'd probably keep it up, because I really like being able to do a lot of content for everyone. It's nice to be able to sort of film all these things and you know, have a whole team work on doing a 60-page monthly magazine, because I think everyone out there geeks out on as much as we do here, so we'd love to share it. But unfortunately, doing all that at the level we do it takes time and money, and so that's kind of what subscription's for. So I think it will continue. All right, next question. Semphus Rythorn asks, recently there has been an interest in a program called Voice Attack, a program where you can voice command functions, target nearest enemy, reroute power to starboard shields, eject. By using the program, we can easily make some of the more complicated controls easier simply by using a voice command. Do you have any plans to implement your own version of Voice Attack, or do you think it is possible to work with the creators of Voice Attack? Good question. Seen the videos, they're awesome. Yes, we're actually investigating that right now, because we're reaching out to the voice attack people, and we kind of think that would be something that'd be really cool to integrate into the game, because it definitely makes the sim aspect of the game more accessible when you can sort of say decouple, G-safe off, and do a bunch of other things that normally you have to click through or search for your keyboard. And it's certainly, you can see it affected the combat ability of the various people that were showing it off. Good job out there for the community for demoing that. But yeah, we thought that was super cool. So yeah, we're investigating it. All right, last question comes from Poison Taco, who asks, would sustained damage in fights prevent you from landing on a planet? For example, if you get into an engagement and lose panels, wings, or other parts of your ship, would that be harmful for re-entry and atmospheric flight? So that's a question we've debated on the design side. I think what we assume is that if you can get into the orbit of the planet and you can sort of communicate and request for permission to land, that we assume even if your ship's pretty badly shot up and damaged, that they get you down there, and then we see the sequence, and then you're down on the landing pad, and then of course you're going to have to get it fixed. May not be able to take off until you've got all that stuff fixed, but we probably wouldn't make it so someone would show up in orbit and they'd just be stuck there and have to eject or something. Who knows, in later stages, not V1, but like as we get further into development, when we actually maybe have some free flight down on the planets, whether that would be effective and the damage would affect it. It probably would, because it will affect it in space. Okay, well that's it. That's the 10 questions for this week. Thank you all for listening. I want to thank all the subscribers out there for enabling this, all the backers for letting us make this hugely ambitious game. It's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And there's a lot of really great stuff to come. So stay tuned, and I'll talk to you next week.